Have you ever walked down the street or sat in a coffee shop and noticed that someone is staring at you? Maybe it's made you feel uncomfortable or self-conscious, or maybe you've just brushed it off as a weird quirk of human behavior. But have you ever wondered why people stare in the first place? In this video, we're going to explore the surprising reasons why people stare at us. You might be surprised to learn that there are actually many factors that can contribute to someone looking at you, and some of them might not be what you expect. We'll be discussing everything from evolutionary and biological reasons to cultural and social norms, as well as psychological and emotional factors. We'll also look at personal factors that might make someone more likely to stare at you, such as your appearance, behavior, or actions. So whether you've always been curious about why people stare, or you've had a recent experience that left you feeling confused or uncomfortable, this video is for you. Let's dive in and discover the surprising reasons why people are staring at you. Evolutionary and biological reasons. Let's start by looking at the evolutionary and biological reasons why humans might be hardwired to stare at others. Our brains are wired to detect patterns and anomalies in our environment, and this includes other people. In fact, our brains are specifically designed to recognize faces, which is why we can identify someone we know from just a glimpse of their face. This innate behavior can be traced back to our ancient ancestors, who needed to be able to quickly identify friends and foes in their environment. Those who were able to recognize potential threats and allies were more likely to survive and pass on their genes, which means that the ability to detect and recognize faces has been evolutionarily selected for over time. So, when someone stares at you, it could be because their brain has identified you as an anomaly in their environment. Perhaps they recognize you as someone they know, or they simply find your appearance or behavior interesting or unusual. It's also worth noting that eye contact plays an important role in communication and social interactions. In many cultures, making eye contact is seen as a sign of respect or trust, while avoiding eye contact can be interpreted as a sign of dishonesty or disrespect. This means that people might stare at you simply because they are trying to read your emotions or intentions, or because they want to signal their own intentions to you. Of course, there are many other factors that can contribute to staring behavior, and we'll be exploring some of them in the next sections of this video. But it's important to remember that our evolutionary and biological history has shaped the way we interact with each other, and staring is just one example of how these ancient behaviors can manifest in modern society. Cultural and social reasons. While evolutionary and biological reasons might explain why humans are hardwired to notice each other, cultural and social norms can greatly influence how and when we stare at others. Different cultures have different expectations when it comes to eye contact, personal space, and other factors that can influence staring behavior. For example, in some cultures, it is common to make direct eye contact when speaking to someone as a sign of respect, while in other cultures, avoiding eye contact is seen as a sign of politeness or humility. Similarly, personal space norms can vary widely across cultures, with some cultures valuing physical closeness and others preferring more distance. These cultural and social norms can greatly influence how we perceive staring behavior. For example, someone from a culture that values direct eye contact might interpret someone else's staring as a sign of interest or respect, while someone from a culture that values more personal space might interpret the same behavior as aggressive or intrusive. It's also worth noting that social factors such as power dynamics, gender roles, and social hierarchies can also influence staring behavior. For example, someone with higher social status might feel entitled to stare at someone with lower social status, while someone who is seen as different or outside of the norm might be more likely to be stared at simply because they stand out. So, the next time you find yourself being stared at, remember that cultural and social norms might be playing a role in the behavior. And if you're traveling to a new country or interacting with people from different cultures, it's important to be aware of these norms and how they might differ from your own. Psychological and emotional reasons. While evolutionary and cultural factors might explain some of the reasons why people stare, psychological and emotional factors can also play a significant role. For example, someone who is feeling anxious or stressed might be more likely to stare at others as a way of coping with their own emotions. Similarly, someone who is feeling attracted to another person might be more likely to stare as a way of expressing their interest or desire. This can be especially true in romantic or sexual contexts, where staring can be seen as a form of flirtation or seduction. In some cases, staring behavior might also be a symptom of a mental health condition, such as social anxiety disorder or autism spectrum disorder. These conditions can make it difficult for people to interpret social cues or understand appropriate behavior in social situations, which can lead to staring or other unusual behaviors. It's also worth noting that our own personal biases and prejudices can influence who we stare at and why. For example, someone who holds negative stereotypes about a certain group of people might be more likely to stare at them either out of curiosity or hostility. Overall, there are many psychological and emotional factors that can contribute to staring behavior, and it's important to be aware of these factors when interpreting someone's behavior towards us or others. By understanding the complex interplay between evolutionary, cultural, psychological, and emotional factors, we can gain a deeper understanding of why people stare and how we can respond to this behavior in a way that feels safe and respectful. Personal factors. Finally, it's important to acknowledge that personal factors can also play a significant role in why people stare at us. These factors can include things like our appearance, behavior, or even our mood. For example, someone who is dressed in a very unusual or eye-catching way might attract more stares simply because they stand out from the crowd. Similarly, someone who is behaving in a way that is perceived as unusual or eccentric might also attract more attention. Our mood can also influence how we perceive and respond to staring behavior. For example, if we're feeling particularly anxious or self-conscious, we might interpret someone staring as a negative judgment or criticism, even if that's not the intended message. It's also worth noting that personal factors can interact with other factors we've discussed, such as evolutionary or cultural factors. For example, someone who is already feeling self-conscious might interpret staring behavior in a negative way because of cultural norms that dictate the importance of personal space or eye contact. So, the next time you find yourself being stared at, it's important to consider how personal factors might be influencing the behavior. And if you're feeling particularly self-conscious or anxious, try to remind yourself that staring behavior is often driven by a variety of complex factors and may not necessarily be a reflection of your own behavior or appearance. By understanding the many different factors that can influence staring behavior, we can gain a deeper appreciation for the complexity of human social interactions and develop more empathy and understanding towards others. Conclusion. Throughout this video, we've explored a range of factors that can contribute to why people stare at us. From evolutionary and cultural factors to psychological and emotional factors, it's clear that staring behavior is often driven by a complex interplay of many different influences. By understanding these factors, we can develop a deeper appreciation for the complexities of human social interactions and the many different factors that can influence behavior. We can also learn to respond to staring behavior in a more effective and empathetic way, whether that means setting boundaries, seeking support, or simply reminding ourselves that staring behavior is often driven by factors beyond our control. Ultimately, by approaching staring behavior with curiosity and empathy, rather than judgment or fear, we can cultivate a more compassionate and understanding approach to the world around us. So the next time you find yourself being stared at, take a moment to consider the many different factors that might be influencing the behavior. And remember that we are all complex and multidimensional individuals with our own unique perspectives and experiences. Thank you for watching, and we hope that this video has given you a deeper appreciation for the surprising reasons why people stare at you.